Maryyy snatches 6 kilos over the world record. Chris Murray smashes his face, and Delin has returned. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world. Alright, let's pick things up where I left off last week. Last week I mentioned about a phone case. In fact, this very phone case here, and whether people wanted it or not. Turns out people do. The issue is there are so many different sizes of phone case, it would just be ridiculous to order a certain number of every single size of phone case. So we're going to have to do this as a print-on-demand type thing where you place an order, we send that order to someone else, they print it and they ship it. It's very quick, it's very easy to do, but it does mean that things cost a little bit more. So we're going to do that, and if you want one and you're willing to pay slightly more for it, then there'll be a link down below. So at the time of you watching this or listening to this, phone cases are available to ship worldwide at worldwide in Europe and the rest of the world, USA included. And then just to reiterate what was said last week is that if you are the head coach or you're sort of in charge of a university team if you're in the UK or Europe, or a college/school team if you're in the USA, because I hear those are two differently named things for some reason, then please do get in touch with us. Get in touch with Nick. So Nick is at nick@weightliftinghouse.com on email, or at nick_weightliftinghouse on Instagram, and we're looking to do some cool collaborative things. So get in touch there. So we're going to have to kick things off with some sad news initially. The head coach of the Belarusian team, Viktor Evgenovich, passed away last week. So Viktor was born in 1953. He was the national team coach of Belarus basically since the fall of the Soviet Union, or just very shortly after in 1992, and then coached all the way through up until last week when he passed away. So RIP to Viktor Evgenovich. So kicking off with Australia, we have Kiana Elliot again making the news show. This week she hit 110 kilos in the clean and jerk. She's of course 64 kilo weightlifter, competed at the World Championships last year. She did, so in the snatch, she's hit 100 kilos before. I mentioned that when it happened. Clean and jerk has always been perhaps slightly behind, but this lift is actually pretty good. I mean, she hit 109 at the World Championships last year, and this was after a bunch of complex work at 100 kilos. So when fresh, I think it's going to be, it might be that at some point in 2021, we see Kiana kind of do the 100, 120, the 220 kind of range in the total, which would be really, really cool to see. 3 big lifts in China this week. The first, of course, from the GOAT, 81 kilo world champion, world record holder, 2012 Olympic champion, possibly soon to be 2016 Olympic champion if the test results go a certain way. We have Xiaojun with a 260 kilo back squat double. Again, this is roughly 87% of his best ever back squats, 305, maybe 86%, something like that. But compared to what we've seen him do over the last year or two, it's actually more like 95, 96%. So it's actually a pretty good lift for a double from him. Now, I have to apologize. I tried to have as big a break as possible from Delin, and I think we managed to go maybe 3 weeks without his name featuring heavily in either the thumbnail or the title of the news show, but unfortunately he's done something which I just can't keep away from the news show. So it's not as ridiculous as 180 hang snatch. It's not as ridiculous as his 190 hang snatch attempt, but it is a 170 kilo snatch. Now from the floor as an 81-year-old weightlifter, 81 kilo weightlifter, if he did this as an 81-year-old weightlifter, he would definitely be back on the thumbnail, but he's not. He did it as an 81 kilo weightlifter, 170 snatch, it's 3 kilos under the world record. He's still young, but I mean, there aren't many 81s out there posting 170 type lifts in training, really, at the moment. I mean, there's obviously Lou. We basically see nothing from Lee Dae-in. Ritvar Harris has, of course, hit 170. Karapetian has hit 170. But the Ninos and the Harrisons of the world, we don't really ever see that 170 type number. So whenever anyone does it, even if it is Lou Delin, we just kind of have to mention it. Okay, and then finally, the probably most impressive lift, in fact, certainly the most impressive lift from around the world, actually, this week, was from Xiaojun, the Chinese 61. Now, most of you don't know his name, and that's fair enough. You know, right now Team China is selecting Li Feibin as their preferred 61 kilo weightlifter, and for good reason. I mean, Li Feibin has a snatch world record at 145. He's clean and jerked 173 in competition, not 174. That's held by Eko Yuli Irawan as the world record, but you know, he's right there. So it makes sense that Li Feibin has been the preferred choice for the 61s. But Weightlifting is, well, he turned 18 last month. He weighed 62 to 63 kilos in this video that you're about to see. And he snatched just now in training 151 kilos. That is 6 kilos over the world record from Li Feibin, his teammate. And it's just remarkable. And in fact, it's actually got some historical context to it. So for those of you who've been following Weightlifting House for more than a year, you probably know that I have a huge interest in the history of weightlifting, the history of the biggest lifts. I wrote a book about it. That's how interested I was in the history of the best weightlifters ever. And, you know, 152.5 is a number that is very interesting for the lightweight lifters. The reason being, Naeem Suleimanoglu, the greatest weightlifter of all time, at least as ranked by Sinclair, famously did 152.5 in the snatch, because of course back in 1988, sole career this was in the Olympics, you could take 0.5 kilo leaps. 152.5, 190. And that was in a 60 kilo class. We now have a remotely similar 61 kilo class, so we can start kind of comparing to the all-time bests. This 151 is closer to that all-time best snatch than we've seen from anyone in that bodyweight category in a long time. Clean and jerk is still some way behind. Obviously, the world record is 174. Naeem did 190, which is, you know, the heaviest over triple bodyweight clean and jerk of all time. And I'm certainly not saying that Weightlifting is going to be the next Naeem. In fact, by the time, well, when Naeem was the age that Weightlifting is now, he was already an Olympic champion. So it's not happening for him. But even so, it's very exciting to see that he's the kind of guy who will either replace Li Feibin or be his successor and push that snatch hopefully towards the 150 mark. And maybe see some lifts that start matching the 1980s lifts that were so famous. Because at the moment, it's only Lasher who's doing that. And for good reason. Okay, so I'm going to have to interrupt very quickly. I was just checking my phone just to check the time and accidentally then went on to Instagram, and I've just seen that Delin is going to just make the show one more time very quickly. You can either see it next to me or you can see it here. We've got a 150 kilo power snatch from Delin, and he catches it pretty high. Again, we've seen 160 from him before, but that 150 is pretty good, so worth mentioning. Which also reminds me as well, thank you so much to everybody who subscribed to the Weightlifting House Instagram. We hit 100,000 followers earlier this week, which is really epic. On the same day, we then hit 1,000 followers on our new page, Weightlifting House Store. So if you're interested in following Weightlifting House Store, please do so. We really want to get that up to 10,000, just because that would be such an epic mark to hit for our store side of things. And in fact, what we're going to be doing, and in fact, I might as well just announce it now. It's not actually up on Instagram, but it will be by the time this has been released, is we're doing a bit of a giveaway. So if you make sure you follow Weightlifting House Store and Weightlifting House on Instagram, there'll be a post on Weightlifting House Store which will be explaining this. If you comment on the post with the name of, 3 friends, something like that, the rules will be there. Then we're basically going to pick out someone who's going to win a pair of straps, some thumb tape, a pick of which book they want basically, and a hoodie. And so if you're interested in that, I guess it comes to the sum of somewhere over $100 that you'll be winning. So if you're interested in that, then Weightlifting House Store is the place to enter that competition. Okay, over to Pakistan, we have the super heavyweight Nooh Dastgir, who once again is still not yet really a household name, a weightlifting household name, I should say. Certainly not a household name, but even within weightlifting, this guy's not yet mainstream. The reason really is because the snatch is just a little bit too far down for a super heavyweight. He's still in the, the 170 type range, but he is a 240 kilo clean and power jerker, which is, staggeringly impressive, especially compared to his snatch numbers. But the real reason why is because he has such strong legs. His pull really isn't particularly good, but his legs are amazing. He just hit this week in training a 260 kilo front squat triple, and the reps actually fly pretty fast. So if just for his leg strength, he's certainly worth a follow. Let's move over now to Iran. We have repeat offender 55/61 kilo Hafez Ghashgaei, who competed at the World Championships last year. He's been around for quite a while, and I'm never completely sure which weight class he's in because he flits back and forth between the two. He was a 55 at Worlds. I think he was a 61 maybe at the Fajir Cup last year. So I'm not completely sure. But this week he just posted a video of a 165 kilo clean and jerk. Now let's think about that. So 165, if he was a true 55, which I doubt he is actually weighing 55, because even the 55s don't actually weigh 55. It's only when they weigh in that they do. If he did weigh 55, that would be a triple body weight clean and jerk, almost 1 kilo off triple body weight, which Omyong Chol did in that weight class at the World Championships last year. He did that 165. If he is a 61, well then, it's still... what's the world record? 174. So it's still 10 kilos under that world record, but it's a great lift either way. 89 kilo Haranin from Belarus hit some enormous lifts this week as well. 89 kilo class is notoriously somewhat dull, I would say. It's not an Olympic class. The best weightlifters in that kind of bodyweight area have clearly separated, as you would do, into the 81s and the 96s. As a result, the competition is lower, there's less drive and push to achieve world records, which is why we've still seen no world records. But someone like Haranin Xiaojun is the kind of person who might be able to hit one. He posted a 160 kilo block snatch double and a 175 kilo block snatch single. World record, or world standard, yet to be set a world record, is 177, I believe. Could be 76, I think it's 77. He then hit a 220 kilo jerk out the racks, which is over the world standard. So whenever we do see him back in competition, things could get spicy. All right, we have a couple of Russians featured this week, actually. We're going to kick things off with, in fact, one of the things about these two lifters, Artem Okulov and Timur Naniev, before I explain what they do, is that I've always thought they lifted pretty similarly. I think, both of them have been blessed with relatively short femurs, but more than almost any other two lifters in the world, when you compare these two, the way they move is incredibly similar. It's really interesting. But Timur Naniev, the 109, we'll start off with. He hit a 200 kilo power clean plus power jerk, which is, a big power clean. And then Artem hang snatch Okulov hit 160 for a double in the hang snatch, as you'd expect. That is his favorite lift. And then he hit a power clean plus hang clean plus front squat plus jerk at 150 kilos, which, it's 150 kilos. It's not actually huge. We've seen him do 215 in competition before, 215 to win the 2015 World Championships, in fact. But it's still interesting to see. He did once do a pull plus clean plus front squat plus jerk complex at 200 kilos, but that was when he was taking different styles of training, let's say. So he was a little bit stronger back then. But even so, kind of cool to see him do that now, and then the 160 hang snatch double. From Latvia, once again, 81 kilo Ritvar Plays has clean and jerk 200 kilos. Now this 200 is 5 kilos less than we've ever seen from him. He did 205 in training. But in terms of a competition lift, it's actually 5 kilos more than we've ever seen from him. He did 195 at the 2019 IWF Junior World Championships. That was back in 2019, as the name would suggest. So it's been a little while since we've seen him actually hit anything over that. So, except for in training, obviously. But I'm kind of thinking that maybe by this time next year, once we've had the Olympics, fingers crossed, Ritvar might be the person who's been able to stand not on top of the podium, but alongside the person who's on top of the podium on a smaller version of the podium. Over in Germany, 73 kilo Max Lang, the newly 73 kilo Max Lang, just snatched 145 kilos in training. Now, this isn't the most we've ever seen from him, even as a 73. Of course, he was at one point a 77, then an 81, now a 73. He's done 145, 147, and 150 in 3 separate competitions as a 73 since the qualification process for the Olympics began. But we don't tend to see him hit that many heavy lifts in training unless it's like an unofficial jerk world record. But other than that, he tends to stay relatively conservative with his training. So this 145 is pretty nice to see from Max. 2 amazing lifts from the UK this week. The first, a complex from Chris Maryyy, a 180-degree backflip plus face smash whilst out doing some trampolining type stuff, which obviously this isn't a real lift. It's absolutely hilarious, so I love the fact that he posted it, and I watched it a bunch of times, and I just feel like more people should see what happened because it's a hilarious fail. So shout out to Chris, the the national record holder, one of our greatest weightlifters that we have in the UK, going out there and smashing his face. So awesome stuff there. We then have another 81 kilo lifter, someone perhaps a little bit smarter than Chris. There are no backflips here. It is 17-year-old Stefano, the weightlifter from Instagram. Now, I've mentioned Stefano before, once, maybe twice. He's a youth British record holder, and he's just, he's a bit of a freak, really. I mean, he just hit 170 for a block clean after 166 and 161. He's clean and squat jerked 155. He's just a huge talent and one to watch, so I thought I would just mention him on this episode just to make sure that for those of you who aren't following him, you maybe reconsider that. He also just front squatted 190, which is pretty big. 3 Canadians make the podcast this week. The first, Alex Bellamarre, 81 kilo Alex. He's made it a few times recently. He just PR'd his clean at 190 kilos. Now, with a competition best of 184 in the clean and jerk, having just cleaned 190 and then jerked 200 a few weeks ago, I think it's safe to say that 184 isn't going to last much longer. It kind of just depends when he next competes. We also have Quinn Everett, aka Quangggg, with 4 G's and an underscore on Instagram. The super heavyweight, he is a 2-time national champion, and he just jerked 220 kilos behind the neck, which is a huge milestone for him. So shout out for that 220. And then finally, we'll finish off with the number 1 ranked weightlifter in the country by some way, Boady Centavi, 96 kilo weightlifter, clean and push jerked, or power jerked really I should say, his feet moved, 200 kilos. And we've seen him do this a few times, but it's the easiest it's ever looked, and according to him, it was the easiest it's ever felt. So 200 kilos for a clean plus power jerk is exciting stuff, especially for someone who, he's a 180 snatcher now, 182 really, and he looks like he might be able to do something close to 220 at some point before or at the Olympic Games. And if he does, he might finally hit that 400 kilo total that he's been in the hunt for a long time. Heading down now to the USA, we have Maryyy Tyson Lappin, aka Coach Maryyy, with 4 Ys, I think, or 3 Ys, something like that. Maybe not as many Gs as Quangggg, but a lot of Ys. She just hit 200 kilos for a front squat triple. Now, I think I even mentioned last week how she just hit 180 for a triple, because I thought that was quite impressive. And now it's 200 for a triple. I don't know where she's going to stop. Maybe she's not going to stop. Who knows? But remarkable lifting from her. She also doubled 112 in the snatch, which is great because as far as we know, I think her best snatch is 116, something like that. She may well have hit more in training. I guess nobody knows except for her and her coach, Will Fleming. But as far as we know, 112 is her best. And 116, and she just doubled 112. All right, next we have Keiser Witt, super heavyweight, with the 160 kilo no foot snatch. 160 kilo double for a no foot snatch, which is pretty nice. The most we've ever seen from him is 190 kilos. He snatched over 180 in competition in Rome at the Roma World Cup. So he's a great snatcher, but he's always been the kind of person who's jumped forward slightly or looped the bar out forward. So for him to be making these 160 no foots looking as smooth as they are is exciting from a form standpoint. Then we have 81 kilo Kate Nye. I mentioned her last week. She snatched 103 kilos, which is the most that she'd done since surgery. This week she just hit 106, and I think it even looked better. She even commented on it saying that it was nice hitting a heavy single and feeling like she had more in the tank, and it certainly did look like that. So she's now within 6 kilos of her all-time best of 112 kilos. And then finally from the USA, we have Jessie Stemo, I believe 87 kilo Jessie Stemo, who tripled 95 kilos in the snatch. The most we've seen from her, 100, did she just hit 108? I think it was 108 that she just hit at the Power and Grace competition. Jeez. Going to check that very quickly. Hopefully we'll edit this out while I'm doing this. Or maybe we won't. Yeah, 108 kilos she hit at the Power and Grace Fall Classic last week. So, 13 kilos under that, 89%, 88%, something like that. But even so, a pretty comfortable triple for her. And the sort of triple that we wouldn't have really seen her attempt or achieve so easily just a year ago. And that, guys, is the end of this slightly shorter episode of the Weightlifting House news show. But don't go anywhere because, of course, we do still have the People's Lifts. Before we get into that, though, phone cases. If you want one, they're not going to be as cheap as I'd like. I'm just going to say that right now. All of our other products that we do, we make a real point of working with the manufacturers, making sure that costs are as low as they can be in terms of reducing cost on transit, all that side of things, fulfillment, that sort of stuff. But unfortunately with this, it's just not going to be the case. But if you do want one, I'm going to put those up on the website right now. Also, if you are in charge of or coach, or you're the head athlete of a university team in the UK, Europe, USA, whatever it is, then do get in touch with Nick at weightliftinghouse.com on email, or at Nick_weightliftinghouse on Instagram. All right, let's get into it. So we have 2 lifters this week who did the same thing. I do have a favorite of the 2, but I'm kind of biased, but I can use objectivity to reason it. And then we have 2 other lifters. So I'm going to start with the 2 who did the same thing. We're going to kick things off with my friend, hence the subjectivity side of things, Bo Brown, who just jerked 200 kilos behind the neck. But he's an 89 kilo lifter, so objectively that beats Trevor Kim, also known as T Kim on Instagram, who also hit 200 kilos, but is definitely a heavier weightlifter. I don't know how much he weighs. I should have looked that up before this, but he's certainly a heavier weightlifter. But anyway, these 2 just ridiculous lifts. Bo_89kg, BEAU_89kg. I've probably mentioned him more times on the Weightlifting House news show over the last 3 years than any other people's weightlifter. And then Trevor Kim, TKIMM10 on Instagram. Again, another ridiculous behind the neck jerk, 200 kilos. So these guys, 2 studs of the week. Go follow them because they're sick. Next we have Fayette Weightlifting, who just hit a double PR in the snatch at 90 kilos. His best snatch ever is 96 kilos. He's competing in state champs in 6 weeks, I think. So 90 for 2 looked pretty good. 96 is his best. 6 weeks to go. It can only mean one thing, and that's the 100 kilo snatch. So I'm really hoping that we might see him hit a 100 kilo snatch for an all-time PR. So guys, go follow him at Fayette Weightlifting, FAYETTE, weightlifting, spelled as weightlifting should always be spelled. Next and finally we have Vincent R. I don't know his last name. I think it's a Spanish weightlifter and coach actually. On Instagram he's called Senbernabo, or maybe Senbernab EU, possibly SENBERNABEU, and he's maybe even the best weightlifter of all of the ones I've just mentioned. 150 kilos for a double in the snatch this week. He doesn't look much more than 90 kilos in body weight, which is crazy to be doing a 150 double. That's a 3 kilo PR for him in the double for the snatch. He's probably singled somewhere around 55. Maybe he's done 60. I mean, the pull actually looked pretty strong. So if you're not following Vincent, you're missing out. So follow Vincent at Senbernabo. That's SENBERNABEU on Instagram. And that, guys, is everything. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show. Head over to Patreon. You get loads of extra videos and podcasts and programs. The most recent one just went up of Harris and Maris training. They went 150, 180. Whole video there with commentary. And make sure you're following Weightlifting House Store and like the post that I put up. Follow it. These are the rules that people always have to do. What are they? You've got to follow the page. You've got to like it. And you've got to tag 3 friends. And if you do that, then you might win a pair of straps, a box of tape, a book, and a hoodie. And if you don't want the hoodie, maybe we'll just get you a couple t-shirts. Just let us know if you win. If you don't win, don't let me know, because I don't need to know that. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all next week.